here.
Trying to get him up here.
And Daniel, we're ready to go whenever you want to start.
Hey, Prod, accept the invite to be a speaker and a co-host of Spaces.
Just catching up with Prod on Discord right now. He said he's on his way. For those of you guys just tuning in this morning or this afternoon, depending wherever you are, we're just waiting for one of the hosts to get his system set up, so we should be starting shortly.
I just messaged Prod, and he's having a little trouble getting on, but I think we can go ahead and start. And hopefully he can join us in a little bit while he gets up and running. First of all, I want to thank Prod so much for helping us connect with the Bankless DAO community. It's been a really great relationship. If you've been a member of the Bankless DAO, you've probably already heard of us or seen of us. We've been in the DAO a number of times, hosting Discord spaces and talking about Phonon. So thanks so much to Prod Humna for making it happen. And I do hope you get up here because you are the star of the show and you're just a great member of the Bankless DAO community. So big thanks for all of your help in helping our DAO get access to more people and to share our mission and vision. So my name is Mickey, and I'm from the Phonon DAO, and we have Justin LaRue and Daniel Beanstrom as well from Grid Plus, and we're here to talk a little bit about the Phonon DAO and our upcoming testnet, which is an incentivized testnet that we just launched yesterday. And I'm going to have Justin and Dan talk in a second. But before I do, I want to give a little bit of a primer and pass things off to probably Justin first. Phonon is, in my opinion, the world's most advanced payments protocol. It's optimized for and compatible with the decentralized web. Here's Brad. The technology behind Phonon is something that you use every day. It's something that your grandmother uses every day. The key distinction is, while most payment systems built on this idea of secure hardware, most of these payment systems, or all of these payment systems, are owned and controlled by huge institutions. So what does it mean to be secure hardware based? Well, inside of your cell phone or inside of your credit card, there is a piece of silicon, and that piece of silicon is manufactured in such a way that each person's piece of silicon on their credit card or their smartphone is as unique as a snowflake. And that uniqueness in that snowflake and the software built on top of it, or the infrastructure built on top of it, allows payments companies like Visa or MasterCard or Apple Pay to ensure that it is Mickey, or it is Prod at the Starbucks buying that cup of coffee, and they can authenticate transactions that way. That's what we mean by secure hardware. So there's a piece of hardware that you use every day, and it allows you and institutions to process payments. Phonon is very different from Apple Pay and Visa and MasterCard because it is the first, at least to my mind, open source attempt at open sourcing this hugely powerful piece of payments infrastructure. And by doing so, we believe we can add a really important piece of the infrastructure of Web3 and the decentralized webs. Most importantly, protect privacy. As you know, like surveillance capitalism, right? The reason why Apple Pay and MasterCard and Visa want to keep these networks proprietary while they want to not open source their technologies because they can track all your payments, analyze your data, and charge fees for your transactions. But Phonon's very different. It's entirely private, perfectly private, and can't be tracked in the same way that Visa and MasterCard are. So I wanted to give a little bit of a primer and then pass this off to Justin LaRue, who is the CEO of Grid Plus. And Grid Plus really birthed the Phonon DAO and helped breathe life into it. And now we have members from all over the world working on this project and launching our testnet. And just they've been such a great custodian of this project and a pleasure to work with. So Justin, why don't I pass it off to you to give us a little bit more detail, and then we'd love to hear your thoughts on the testnet as well.
All right. Thanks, Mickey, for the introduction. Before I kick off, now that we've got Prod on, he's got his mic on, I don't want to derail if you have a set itinerary for the call. So welcome, Prod.
Hey.
But if you're all set up, I'll cut out for a second, but otherwise I can keep going.
Yeah, you can keep going. I was just on my desktop, so I was switching to my phone. That took a minute. Thank you.
Apologies for putting you on the spot, but I just wanted to double check. So, yep,
No
I'm
worries.
Justin LaRue. I'm the CEO of Grid Plus, and as Mickey said, this was a technology that we had incubated internally, but it's really something too big and beyond the scope of what our real focus is. That it's something that needed to be in the open source domain. It's something where we want lots of contributors and lots of other companies implementing the technology, and keeping that within our grasp would just stifle it from ever getting traction. So we spun out the protocol and the DAO. Phonon DAO is sort of like the steward of the protocol, and Grid Plus is supporting this effort, and then slowly passing off more and more. But what we're doing that's driving things at the moment is we are doing the first reference implementation. So Dan Veenstra, who you'll meet in a second, is leading the client implementation team that's going to do like a reference implementation and software development kit and also all the documentation for that. And the idea is to make it so that lots of people out there can build their own implementations based off this code, work with the DAO, or build other tools on top of Phonon. So like Mickey was saying, Phonon uses technology that's widely deployed and battle hardened, and it's in all of our homes already. Things like smart cards, which are the credit and debit cards that you have in your wallet now, new phones with eSIMs and hardware wallets. And what we do with this, with the Phonon protocol, is allow you to transact with the crypto you have now. It's not a new blockchain, but lets you take your ETH, your ERC20s, any crypto asset, and transact peer-to-peer off-chain. The way that it does this, and why we use the secure hardware like a smart card, is that you can use the entropy from those chips that like are in credit cards and debit cards, called puff chips that Mickey was explaining, and you can have a cryptographic handshake off-chain that will ensure that you're passing something peer-to-peer, but there's no double spends. So what this does is augment all of the blockchains that you use now. It's not supposed to replace anything. It's another arrow in the quiver, another tool that we think will open up some new approaches that support, in particular, all the things that physical cash used to do and we're losing today in the digital world. So in particular, direct peer-to-peer transactions. There's no scaling choke points because it's peer-to-peer. You don't even necessarily need an internet connection in future iterations of this. Like you could have Bluetooth or NFC with another phone. and directly pass something along that way, and being cryptographically certain there is no double spend. And so we have the direct peer-to-peer aspect. We have it's privacy preserving because there is no broadcast record of any of this, and also scalable. And at its core, it's free when you interact with another person. So the best metaphor remains physical cash. I always lean in on everything every time I talk about my experience watching the rise of WeChat in China, as I traveled there often, and getting to the point where you would go to like a tiny place or like a street vendor and you'd have just a QR code for paying, and people didn't have change for cash. So the idea that every place you go, every transaction that you take part in is broadcast, uh, to all different parties, whether they're companies or they are, government entities. You know, we lose what we already had in terms of privacy with cash. A lot of people thought crypto was fulfilling that promise, but we're transacting on public ledgers. So we're preserving these properties, and what we're throwing out there is a toolkit so that other developers down the line can implement all of this to supplement, whether it be their hardware wallets, exchanges with Fastlane deposits directly using the protocol, or just all the other things that we hope down the line people will build on top of this, such as like a real custodian-free version of like Shapeshift as we used to know it. So those things are further down the line. What we're launching now with the testnet is really just the most basic implementation of this protocol using smart cards and USB card readers. So this is all open source, and we opened up the testnet yesterday. And Dan can speak more to this because he's leading the implementation effort. We opened up the testnet yesterday, and the way that it works is that Grid Plus is distributing these testnet alpha testnet kits, and they work only with a series of Ethereum and other blockchain testnets. And these kits, we sell them for 129, but the DAO is actually incentivizing people. If you participate in the alpha testing, you will and go through about like 30 to 60 minutes worth of just trying things out with the system and helping us stress test everything and look for edge cases. You will be reimbursed by the DAO with approximately $200 to $300 worth of the native Phonon token from the DAO. And then also everyone who completes all of the testing will get a really cool POAP NFT, so that we hope will unlock lots of other things via the DAO. So that's a long way from introduction and overview of the project. Before I get too much further, let me pass it on to Dan Veenstra, who is leading the implementation efforts for the Grid Plus team.
Yeah, hey guys. Like Justin said, Dan Veenstra, engineering manager for the Phonon team at Grid Plus. And yeah, Justin gave a pretty good overview of the protocol, but just to give a little more detail on the testnet and what we're looking to get out of it is, this is an early implementation of the protocol and the client system on top of it. There's been a lot of development going into the applet on the card and the client above it, as well as like the user interface. So we really just want to get some basic test feedback on how the lower levels of the system are working, if phonons are being exchanged easily and securely. Because it's a challenging problem to exchange private keys in an end-to-end encrypted fashion and in a secure way. But yeah, if you want to participate in the testnet, check out the alpha test site on phonon.network. The links from there should provide all the instructions and get to the store page to buy a testnet kit, download the software, and run through the 5 or so objectives we're looking to see if people can accomplish with the software. In addition to that, we've got a couple of bonus objectives out there for penetration testing bounties to see if anyone out there can try to break the current iteration of the Phonon security systems, to see if someone can double spend a Phonon or reveal the private key of a Phonon card. It's an identity private key, which should really never be revealed. So yeah, love for you guys to come along and help us test this out. If anyone's interested in development, I'm always interested in hearing people's ideas for building on top of the protocol or contributing to it. And happy to answer any questions on the technology or the testnet.
Thanks so much, Dan. I remember one of the questions that came out of our last talk on the Bankless DAO community were questions around private keys. So when Justin was explaining a little bit about how Phonon worked, we were talking about Phonon's ability to send one private key to another from one card to another without double spend, completely privately. But there was some concern from some of the Bankless DAO members about what that meant, because we're always told to really protect our private keys and be very careful about that. Can you give us a little bit more information on how Phonon secures private keys and secures your crypto when it gets transferred?
Yeah, absolutely. The way Phonon uses private keys is probably pretty weird for the compared to the way that HD wallets use them on signing transactions for blockchains. But it's sort of an inversion of the normal security model for holding on to private keys. So instead of holding on to a single private key that represents your account on a blockchain and using that to sign transactions, in Phonon we keep the private key secret even from the holder of that private key. And we actually allow users to send the private key directly back and forth to each other. So what that basically allows is that you can use the private key of the account as a bearer asset to represent access to the account on the original blockchain. And basically whoever ends up with possession of that private key will possess the ability to move the assets on its original origin chain. So what we do is basically we have the software in the Phonon secure applet, the card applet, to generate these private keys secretly and share the public key with the user, but protect the private key on the card in an encrypted format where it can't be read by anyone. Then you can use that public key to derive an address on the chain that you want to create assets on, and then deposit assets basically to that address. So now the private key on the card controls access to that address, but no one actually knows the private key. And the only way to get it out of the card is to essentially issue a destroy command to the card, which will then reveal the private key, but also take it out of the system as a Phonon, so it can no longer be transacted between Phonon users. So that's essentially the mechanism that prevents double spends from within the system. But as long as you're not redeeming the private key off of the original chain, you can just send that back and forth as many times as possible, with each transfer of the Phonon essentially being a payment or a transfer of assets from one user to another without any fee or any need to touch the original blockchain.
To add a little bit to what Dan said, I missed the first time that Phonon DAO had the opportunity to speak with Bankless DAO. And so coming from Grid Plus, our focus is entirely keeping user assets safe. That's what we're here in the space to do, is give people the best possible security tooling. So it was almost kind of heartening to hear when people learned about how Phonon worked under the hood, that they were concerned about the transfer of private keys. But what Dan is describing is abstracted away from the user. What we're seeing with the off-chain peer-to-peer transfer is that you will, basically be going through a graphical user interface, transacting directly with a peer, and it feels like a general crypto transfer. But the way that we're doing this off-chain leverages these sort of third-party private keys that no one's using, and that's actually what you're sending around. That's what a Phonon is. A Phonon is any private key for any supported chain that you load up with a given asset, and you can move that around off-chain as many times as you'd like. If you want to send it back on a given chain, keys are paid from whatever is within that private key to settle back. So that way, will be a convenient way of seeding new wallets if you're concerned about your OPSEC and how you divide up all your accounts in account-based systems like Ethereum and other EVM chains. And but yeah, so it was great to hear that people it raised red flags. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, my private keys! I've heard never to share those," and so that's wonderful. But really, this is all something that is taking place under the hood. So it's a more matter of how the technology works in a way that we can leverage these secure puff chips that are on all these cards. Like I said, a system that's been battle hardened over decades, and use those to ensure cryptographically that you're having a secure transfer, even if you're not getting everything verified by the rules of a given blockchain. Because really what you're doing is you're just passing on the right to have that asset on that blockchain. You're passing that key secretly in a secure way where you've transmitted to another person, they've received, what's contained in it, but nothing is actually happening on chain. You're just transferring that write securely. So yeah, very good to hear that people are concerned about their personal security. So it was actually a good feedback in terms of the messaging.
Yeah, and it's been so great to have community support from Bankless DAO with Phonon, and it's just been a pleasure. I think we're open up to questions as well from anyone in the audience who's interested in asking, learning more. If you're interested in hearing more about the testnet, we also have a lot of information available on our website, phonon.network, where you can find all the details on how to purchase a test kit. The test kits are available. I do highly recommend you buy them quickly because I think that we do have a limited number of test kits available, and they're selling out fast. I think more than half of them are gone at this point. And so if you're interested in being a part of this, I really recommend you getting a kit. It's so, what makes this project really exciting is its open source nature, because at its core, the Phonon protocol can be built on top of, and really excited to see what happens when different teams come in and build on top of Phonon. And what makes open source so powerful and what makes DAO so powerful is you can unleash the talent of the internet, 24/7, with talented people from all over the world, which we have at the Phonon DAO in our Discord. And that's the magic of open source. So I think, the test kit is available now, and I would certainly take a look at it. Like Justin was mentioning, the DAO will compensate you or send you across Phonon governance tokens, which more than covers the cost of the kit and the shipping. So if you're concerned about that at the end, if you complete all the tasks, which Dan mentioned, you'll be more than covered for the cost of the hardware. And it's exciting and fun to play with a piece of hardware like this for something like crypto. This is not an often seen implementation, and certainly one of the things that makes us different and makes us really excited. So happy to open up to any questions or comments from the audience if anyone's interested. I also want to say, I'm wondering if Dan, if you can give us a little bit of insight on to what you're looking for, what you want to accomplish with this alpha test, and what happens after the alpha test is done.
Yeah, sure. So with this alpha testnet, we're looking to really get feedback on how the basic functionality of Phonon is working. So there's been a lot of development under the hood to enable end-to-end encrypted transfers of private keys between secure hardware, and we'd just like to see people attempt a bunch of those transfers and see if they're working back and forth, if there's any problems that we need to know about that we can get fixed for the next iteration of Phonon, and also just people's general feedback on how the user experience is, and how the app matches up with their expectations of how this thing should work, and other ideas they have for what can be built on top of it. We want to hear as well. As for what happens after, we're probably going to be working on the beta release for Phonon. So if we're moving on from the testnet and the alpha into the beta, we'll be driving towards feature completion for production to basically enable all of the remaining features we haven't gotten to build so far. So things like enabling larger number of phonons to be transferred, polishing up the UI, creating more open source friendly architecture for redeems and deposits on different chains. So we want it to be easy to utilize Phonon on as many different blockchains as possible, which is a great goal for us because we're really just dealing with private keys, which is pretty much the most primitive data structure that you can use in a blockchain. So it's widely supported on basically every blockchain that there is, but there's also means there's a long tail of integrations to get assets into and out of Phonon securely. We want to enable people to contribute to the protocol without building all of those ourselves. So yeah, we've got a roadmap up. I think we've got it posted on the Phonon DAO website somewhere at this point. Our general overview of the beta roadmap, see what's next. So yeah, I think that answers the question.
Yeah,
And that's
amazing.
Phonon.network. So if you guys are interested in experimenting with this and lending a hand to the effort, Phonon.network, you will, and that's PHONON everyone says photon, but it's actually a physics term. It's like the sound equivalent of a photon. It's a sound wave and a particle. And anyways, phonon.network, and you can get started. And we hope to see more of you get involved with the testnet, because we're really excited about what we're bringing to the crypto community as a whole. And we think this is a really powerful new primitive for privacy, scaling, interoperability. And it's just going to be cool to be able to see the new wallet and zap money instantly off chain between hardware wallets and phones. So we think this is something that a lot of people will be using soon under the hood, and will kind of change the game. So please get involved. We'd love your help and your feedback on what we're building.
Yeah, I think it's like a sort of very classic story for me, you know, seeing what Phonon was up to and seeing how unique it was, and then being very confused about how it was technically possible. And then as I learned more and more and read the documentation, being completely blown away by what could be possible, and just seeing so many talented people coming to the project. I always had this feeling of, that I wish I had been involved earlier in Ethereum and had been able to build and build and work on Ethereum in the beginning. And I didn't. I had other things kind of going on, and it's sort of now to be a part of this really enthusiastic, fast-growing, really interesting, exciting implementation has been so exciting for me. So if you're like me and want to be a part of building something really exciting, and definitely hop into our Discord. It's a very welcoming community with really talented people. And as we get more information on how the testnet goes, we'll be announcing next steps in the roadmap and ways for you to get involved. We have so many different ways and means to get involved here, and we'd love to have you as part of our community. So anyway, thanks everybody so much for joining us. If there's any more questions, we can field those. Otherwise, I think we can end the space.
Great. I just want to say thanks so much to Bankless DAO for hosting us again. And we hope to speak with all of you guys again soon and share what we've learned from the testnet. So
can you guys
so
hear
much.
me? I had a quick question.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
If you're not a technical person, how hard is it to run through the testnet task?
Hopefully not hard at all. The app should be downloadable in a pretty familiar way with a package system and a web user interface. So should be perfectly possible for a user who's not deeply technical to get through the objectives in less than a couple of hours.
Yeah, and just to add is, so Dan's a developer. You have to take what he says with a grain of salt. But the directions, the steps are on the Phonon.network site, so you can take a peek. But really, it's through a graphical user interface. It's compatible with Linux, Mac OS, and Windows, right? And if you're a real technical person, maybe it's like 30 minutes worth of effort to go through all this stuff, maybe hour and a half for someone more like me. And beyond that too, it's laid out step by step, and there will be people in the DAO to kind of lend a hand. So it's definitely doable, and it's not like all command line level stuff. It's through a graphical user interface, which is the key thing for most people who are non-devs.
Thank you.
Hey, Phonon DAO. This is Michael Wong. I was supposed to start this Spaces for us, and I'm sorry that I didn't get more info. Otherwise, I would have been a better host. I'm sorry that we didn't have a bona fide host for you guys today, but I really appreciate you guys facilitating a convo for the DAO and all that. If you want to do this again, especially Justin, hit me up. on a DM so I can make this happen for you guys in a different time of the day. I woke up to get this started because nobody else had access to this account. But I was really appreciative of listening to you guys, and I wish I had a little bit more brief so I could jump into the convo with you guys, but I didn't know where you guys were necessarily going. So, what an apt and an important convo for, this last week where people are getting rugged left and right, and people are thinking about, how should I be taking care of my stuff right now? I think it was a very important convo for the DAO to hear. So, thanks again, guys.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks for getting up early. I know it's always hard, with crypto being a global phenomenon, to find times that easily work for everybody. So thanks everyone for tuning in.
You said it, and again, hit me up if you wanna make this happen again. This would be fun to do. Thanks again. Peace.
Bye.